Hey guys, welcome back to the Practical Hot Rod channel. See my wife's ID4 back there. Today, I'm actually not doing anything on the Escape or on my Cobra. Today, I'm going to be working on this beast. 2003 Ford Expedition. This is used to be our RV tow vehicle. Now it's just our extra car. It's what I make my big Home Depot runs when I need to do plywood or something like that, because it won't fit in either of our other vehicles. What's wrong though is I have an emissions leak. I'll show you the trouble code on screen, but it shows as a small leak. I had a friend do a smoke test, and smoke's just coming out from the top of the fuel tank. The gas cap is fine, it's not that, but it's the same leak that a bad gas cap would show. The mechanic friend of mine said that he's replaced the fuel tanks on these before. You cannot get a remanufactured tank. He got them from a salvage yard, and all the ones that he got were defective. So a little JB weld on top of the tank fixed that one. So I'm expecting something similar. I'm gonna go ahead and get to work on this. I've got it jacked up on jack stands. I've learned my lesson there. So I'm going to get under here, disconnect the fuel lines, the emission lines, and get ready to drop the fuel tank itself. I'll probably not get much of this done tonight. This will probably be a multi-day video, but just to kind of set the stage for what's going on. Anyway, let's get to it. I did a few things off camera. Sure enough, there's only one fuel line. I guess mine has a returnless system. Does have the 3 emissions lines, and I may have found my problem. I've had some pack rat damage to this car before. Actually, when I took it into my friend to do the work on it, the pack rat was still in his nest. So well, he was cool about it. I know he didn't appreciate me bringing a pack rat into his shop. They were able to take care of that, get it all cleaned up, and do the repair. It was the knock sensor up in the engine compartment. I've got what I call a pack rat deterrent, a little electronic light and buzzer and all that. Uses D battery so it doesn't pull off or C battery so it doesn't pull off the car battery, because this sits for extended periods of time. But as I was down there working on the fuel tank, I found various pieces and parts of what a pack rat likes to have. So this is part of a cactus. We've got a lot of those here in Tucson, and sure enough, these things are all up along the side of the fuel tank. So that little guy may have done some damage to one of those emissions lines, and that is probably what's wrong. So I may be just replacing, there's just kind of like an emissions, what would you call it? Like a harness almost. A couple of emission lines that I think run along the top of the tank to connect the front and the back lines. So I'm gonna have to drop the tank to figure that out. But while I was in there disconnecting the fuel and emissions lines, I found lots of pack rat signs, and sure enough started pulling out some of those pieces and decided I'm gonna stop there, get on some better gloves before I go cleaning all that out. So that's gonna be a job for tomorrow when the light is better. It's starting to get a little bit dark here, so I will save that for tomorrow, and I will show you the pictures of the fuel and emission lines when I'm doing that. All right, just an update on my Ford Expedition. Sitting right here, been sitting here for a while. Just haven't had the time to get out here and work on it the way I want to. Again, P0442, small emissions leak is the code that's coming up. It won't pass the inspection. So I checked everything that I could. The smoke test showed smoke coming off the top of the fuel tank. I didn't do that smoke test. That was the mechanic friend of mine. So I dropped the tank to see what it was. Had some pack rat damage to this wiring harness. Went ahead and just put a new fuel pump in while I was at it. Replaced the gasket, and there was tons of pack rat nesting and just disgustingness up on top here. But lots of research online, great folks over at the Expedition Owners Forum. I don't know how well this is going to show up. I think it's showing up pretty good there. You can see right there that crack. That, I do believe, is the source of my small emissions leak. The problem with these valves are that they are basically plastic welded in place. So like that guy doesn't just rotate out and replaceable like some other fuel tanks that Ford makes. I think the Explorer is one that does it. So we're gonna go with the alternate repair. And this one says it's fuel and chemical resistant. So I'm really hoping that it's gonna hold up for more than just a few weeks. As soon as I get this on and clear that code, it's hitting the emissions test. But honestly, I think that's it. I didn't notice it for a long time because the hose was attached and it was blocking my view of that. So after reading a couple articles online, I came out, disconnected it, cleaned it up really well. And sure enough, I think that's the problem. I'm gonna do a good look on this one as well, but it looks like it might be in better shape. It's got a different connector. I gotta get the removal tool for that, and then I'll take a look. But yeah, once I get that cleaned up, I'm gonna replace the rubber hose that goes from there to the filler neck, down from the filler neck, and that'll be the last of it that I'm gonna do. I tried to take the fuel can or the vapor canister out. That is a jigsaw puzzle from hell, and so I'm not even gonna try and finish that. I'm just gonna tighten the bolts back up and call that good, because I think that is my problem. So that's the one I was just showing you guys. And now if you look right here, this one too has that same crack. So I'm gonna clean it up a little bit better, and I'll be using the JB Weld on both the front and the rear. That small vent valve there looks good. I think that's the one that kind of overflows back up to the fuel filler. I'm not 100% sure on that, but that one's in good shape. It's just both of these. So I'm highly confident that was the problem. So we'll get those JB welded and show you the aftermath. Here's kind of a close-up look. Again, this is the rear end of the tank. You can see I just mixed up some of the JB Weld and really tried to kind of cake it on there in such a way that I would completely cover that bottom area underneath. And it actually looked like a little bit of this edge over here might have not been holding as well. So I went ahead and went around a little extra, made it hopefully plenty thick, and even spread it down onto the tank so that hopefully there wouldn't be any residual leak issues. And then here on the front, you can see it did the same thing. Again, tried to get underneath it really, really well. Spread it out. This one didn't have any of the edges of the kind of that weld seam where it looked like it might have weakened some. But like I said, really tried to get underneath it pretty well and completely seal up that area that it cracked. Tried to push the JB Weld down into that crack and then just liberally coat over the top. So I'm gonna give this a couple of days to dry. I'll go work in my shop on some drywall in the meantime. But hopefully next time we come back out, this guy will be ready to reinstall. Today is reassembly, or at least the first part of reassembly. Need to resecure the vapor canister in the back, re-zip line the vent that comes up, or the vent kind of hose tube comes up to the fuel tank, and then get this bad Johnny actually reinstalled. My seal looks really good. I don't think I'm gonna have any problems with those. They look good across the board. And that's in. I'm gonna replace the fuel filter, but I'm gonna wait till I actually get the tank installed. It's easier than tipping it sideways and doing all that. Not much gas in it, but a little bit. I'm gonna try and get this part done by myself. I ended up not replacing that tube. I'm really hoping I don't need to. I just couldn't find a good source for it. But anyway, that is today's task. So we're gonna get started. I'm on my back underneath the car. Again, there's the front transaxle drive shaft going to the back. Just showing you where all the different things connect. So that is the main line that comes down from the fuel filler neck that goes into the back of the tank there. And again, I'm sorry for the spatially disorienting method of filming this. Those two up there are the vapor lines going back to the rear canister, and they're gonna hook to the two lines at the back end of the tank. This connects to the top plastic vent right here. This one did not have a crack or a leak, so I feel good about that. And then on the front side, we've got the two lines right there. There's 1 and 2, and they're gonna connect to the front two of these. Then we've got the electrical harness connection for the fuel pump itself. And that guy is right there. So again, all this is right here next to this wide, beefy cross member and that one. So the fuel tank straps are gonna hook into the triangular, or sorry, what's that, a pentagon shape, 5-sided? Yeah. And then they'll bolt in to this here. And then the same on the front strap, it's gonna go to that pentagon shaped connector and then bolt into that. So I've got the two bolts in the seat. I'm gonna try and get it positioned, and then I'm using a jack with a piece of plywood to give it a larger base so that I can hopefully get it secured into place. So just a racing kind of floor jack. I'll use this, set the tank on top of that, and hopefully that'll give it enough levelness that I can get it in here and jack it up into place, connect everything up, and then get it secured. I probably won't be able to do any filming while I'm doing that, so we'll just kind of have to wait and see how it goes. Just a couple of comments about prep, sizing of the bolts. So the evap canister bolts that I removed that I needed to put back in, they were 3 10mm, so I don't need that anymore. The tank strap bolts themselves are going to be a 13mm, and these are the two tank strap bolts, so that's going to fit those perfectly. And then this is the ring clamp off of the fuel filler neck tube, and obviously you can use just a flathead screwdriver on that, but to get a better grip, it is a 6mm socket that will also do that. So I'm going to have my 6mm socket with an extension, and I'm going to have the 13mm socket on the 3/8 extension, and that should let me secure everything once I'm able to wiggle my hands and get things in place. The smaller vent tube on top of the tank also uses a similar clamp. It's much smaller, but it also is a 6mm or flathead. I may use the flathead just to get it started until I can get things in position. But there you go. That's what you need to reattach the tank. I'm hoping many of you don't suffer from the same problem that I have, but this pea gravel driveway makes it very difficult to maneuver the jack. So what I've decided is I just stacked some 2x4s and then lifted the tank up enough, and now I can adjust the depth of the jack so that when I first started jacking it up, it doesn't fall that way. It actually pulls it up closer. So I'm just gonna get it positioned evenly aligned with the straps. And my big problem is the sway bar, because I couldn't disconnect those sway bar bushing mounts. So I have to actually pull the tank this way, get it up above the sway bar, and then go in. So that'll make this even a little bit more of a challenge. But if you're able to remove the sway bar, then you could just go straight up from here, and that would be the easiest option. But for me, I'm gonna have to continue to fight with it But this was a great little idea with basically building a little platform to set it on. I wish it had a lot less gas in it. I don't want to siphon out what's in it. I may end up doing that. We'll see. I could just pour it into a clean bucket and then pour it back in once I'm done, and that would make it a whole lot easier. So I think I may actually do that. So we'll take care of that and then we'll come back. Well, that turned into something of a saga. I tried to empty the fuel out of the tank and I forgot. So important safety tip. There's like a flap in there. And if you take a screwdriver and push it in, it'll hold that. And then you can just tip the tank and pour it. If you don't have that flap valve closed, tank's not going to pour out. You just get like a few dribbles. So forgetting that, I opted to pull the fuel pump out and then stick my siphon hose down inside that. And that worked like a champ. But I discovered that in taking the cap off, and I was really glad I did this, God watches after the foolish, right? The O-ring gasket between the top of the fuel pump sits underneath it in a slot. That gasket had come out and was actually over into the threaded area of the screw cap. So, unfortunately, local dealer didn't have it. None of the O'Reilly or AutoZone or those guys carry it. It's a motocroft part. So I had to drive all the way across town to the other dealer who happened to have one in stock. So an hour later, I've got the part, get back to install it, and then the cap won't sit. It's cold enough that I actually had to break out the heat gun and heat up the lip and the cap, and then I was finally able to get it to thread on. Oh my goodness, kind of a nightmare. So now I've got all this put together. The sun is going down. I'm gonna do my best to get this thing installed before the day is over and it gets too dark, but we're gonna see. There's the old ring that got stretched out and no longer fit. But yeah, here we go. All put back together. The tank is now empty, so hopefully I can muscle it into place. So just showing you how this fuel line connects back to the plastic hose there. What I was able to do is grab this little slot right here in the fuel tank and pull forward while I wiggled the tank up and down. And a third hand would have been great, but I eventually was able to, using that method, and left hand up here, right hand on the fuel tank, pull, wiggle, finally got that thing all the way in. So now I'll just tighten this screw clamp back up using that 6mm bolt, and then we'll move on to the near impossible one that's up on top of the tank. That one's definitely going to be a booger. And for that, I'm going to have to tip the tank back down so I can get my hand up in there. But once this is secure, that'll kind of keep it from sliding backwards. Puts a little stress on the hose, which I'm not crazy about. But in all honesty, I have no other idea how to do this. So that's going to be next. So clearly this thing's kind of gummed up to the point that it doesn't work anymore. So in trying to tighten it back up, all I did was snap it right off, and it only took like 2 turns. So now I'm gonna go to my clamp drawer and find one that's gonna fit. One thing after the other. So if anybody hasn't done this before, you're probably not trying to do this. All you have to do is loosen the screw completely, and then the ring clamp comes, completely undone. Then I can wrap it around the pipe and then tighten it up again. So that's going to be the next step. It's getting dark enough, hard to see under there, so I'm going to put this on. Obviously this is my own, so it's not the 6mm, it's a 5/16. And I feel a lot better about this guy maybe than the original one. So we'll get that on, and then we'll move up to the top vent tube. Here you can see, extreme close-up. Let me back that off just a little bit. You can see the new hose clamp is installed right there. And obviously there's a bit of excess, but I'm okay with that. It is secured. It's not squeezing right on the ridge, so it's right where the original one was. And I think that's going to hold very nicely. You're going to tighten it pretty good, but not so tight that it's going to cut into the hose. So that one's done. Time to move forward. This is just going to show you kind of how much space you're working with in here. So this is the top of the tank. Right there's the cross member. And this tube comes in from above the cross member. And right there is that top vent valve that you got to get that guy onto. And there is just not much room to work with. I'm trying to raise and lower the tank a little bit to get a little bit more space, but if I lower it too much, the hose is too short. If I raise it too much, there's no room for my hand. So this will be a fun one. There's just not enough room for my hand. So I was able to lube it with some soap. Again, using that ridge on the tank, wiggling, shoving, sliding once I kind of had it all the way up into position. So I was able to get the hose on, but to tighten the clamp, there's just not enough room. I can't get at it straight enough. So I'm going to try this universal joint, see if that'll let me kind of get enough tension on it to tighten it. I can't get at it with the screwdriver. I have no idea how my buddy got that thing off. So here we go. Well, that did it. I am pleasantly surprised. Once I got my watch off, I could get my hand in here a little bit better. But yeah, that thing is crazy tight. It is almost on top of the tank, but curved back down in there. And there's just no way to get it with anything other than that universal joint that I can think of. But I'm pretty sure it's secure. If not, that will be my problem and I'll have to come at it again later. But I'm pretty sure I have it on there snug. So I don't think it's going to come off, even if it's not as snug as it should be. And it's snug enough that I don't think it's going to leak. So I think we're good. Again, using these ridges to wiggle it and shove it around is what allowed me to get the tank in place. So now that those are there, I'll hook up the electrical connection right under here. Do the two emissions hoses in the front and the back. I'm gonna go ahead and put the tank straps on just so I don't have to continue to use my contraption here. I'm gonna have to get myself a proper transmission jack and also start using that building over there with the concrete floor. Woo, that's what I had it built for. But anyway, I actually parked this here and dropped the tank while they were still building that thing. So that gives you an idea of how long it's been. Months. Anyway, I will get these straps on and then see what we can do from there. We're losing even more light. Pretty gorgeous sunset here in Tucson. Most of them are. So we're almost done here. Got all the near impossible hoses connected. Got the rear emissions hoses connected. I still have to do the front fuel lines and emission lines there. Just a couple of pointers. The tank straps are different. There's a front and a rear. The rear strap has a shorter section that goes up to the body with the bolt hole. The front one is a longer one. So if you did like me and totally separated them and set them aside so you had more room to work, make sure you position them that way. Short one in the back, long one in the front. All right, I've got the rear one just kind of threaded in place currently. The front one is loosely sitting there, but I'm gonna go ahead and tighten up the straps and then hook up the fuel lines. Then I think we can call it done. Whew. I needed the really long extension to get that front tank strap installed. The back one was pretty low, easy to get to, but that front one, the longer one, was up there pretty good. And my regular, 3-inch extension wasn't long enough. But this guy did the trick. Now we're gonna hook up the front lines and we will be done. This should be probably the last post about the expedition here. I got it buttoned back up and decided to take it for a drive, and it was driving really well. So I took the chance and I rolled up to the emissions station, and sure enough, it passed. So I can now renew the registration legally and hopefully not have any problems for quite some time. In addition to repairing the fuel tank, I had several rubber vacuum connections under the hood. Sorry for that. Several vacuum connections under the hood that needed to be replaced. So I replaced 5 or 6 of those. One vacuum hose that goes to one of the evap canister solenoids was disconnected off the intake. So I reconnected that. Those, I believe, came off just in the thrash of just trying to find different things under the hood that might be the issue. But all is resolved. Car passed emissions. Air conditioner works great. Before, it would cycle between the defrost and the dash, regardless of what setting it was on. And all my research said that was the vacuum hoses that were the problem. So I'll show you guys the vacuum hoses that I replaced. So my battery had a bad cell, would not hold a charge. So brand new battery. But specifically the vacuum hoses that were a problem were the ones back here behind the ECM. So this side was good, but the other side over here was bad. And then the down section was bad. What was funny is this actually just went straight into another connector and then into this. So why use an extra hose? Just a piece of failure. So I just plugged that straight in there, resolved that problem. And then this one that comes across and goes underneath the intake. Oh yeah, this guy had come unconnected too from that. I think that's a fuel pressure regulator over there. But right here at the front down here, you can see those are new hoses. I replaced those. And that one goes kind of a 90-degree bend into that area. So I replaced all those, and then you can kind of see under here, there's 2 hoses right there, and that right-hand side was completely unplugged. So I just pushed that guy back onto position, checked everything else, make sure nothing looked like it was a problem, and it didn't. But after I replaced all of those, and they were falling apart. I mean, my fingers just turned black as soon as I touched them. They were just deteriorating. So I replaced all those. I just had some old fuel line laying around from working on the Cobra, and that was all it took. So that is now complete. Car runs great. The air conditioner works perfect. You can see the pack rat damage that happened to the car previously. Sucker did a pretty good number on it, but all that has also been repaired, and that little guy is helping keep the pack rats out. I'm also going to just have a trouble light in it whenever I'm not driving. But there we go. This volume is coming to a close. The Expedition is back on the road. All right, guys, thanks for following along on this journey. I'll get this one posted, and hopefully the next one will be back to work on the Escape. Got the new Recaro seats that I need to get to work on, and a couple other goodies that hopefully I'll get installed soon. Anyway, that's it for now. We'll see you guys next time.